Good morning, BHA Advisory Council. This is Bob Dorsheimer, Chairperson. I'd like to welcome you all to the holiday edition to the Advisory Council today. We have a very packed agenda, so I'd like to do some housekeeping at this point in time, and then we're going to do roll call. So for all of the members, if you're not participating in conversation, I ask that you remain mic'd up, muted meaning. And if you do have a question, please raise your hand and state your name so that way it's recorded, and ask your question and we can have that dialogue. So the formality of all of this is very important so we can stay on task and keep the agenda moving forward. At this point in time, please take a look at your agendas. We are going to talk a lot today about the amazing changes happening in Colorado and with the Advisory Council. Today, we're going to be moving forth in talking about the creation of an executive committee, which I'll get more involved with describing what that is. We're going to be talking with the state a little further on how we would like to respond to community through questions and answers, and building out a more robust way that community can access us through the website. So we'll talk more about that. We're going to talk about the fact that we have a committee report out on governance and bylaws today. How about that? Success there. And most importantly, we're going to hear from our commissioner today on the BHAACs. And the BHAAC, as I educated everyone about around Thanksgiving, is an administrative service organization, an ASO. So when change is happening, which we all asked for, voted for, that's what created the BHA. We all want behavioral health to be stronger, vibrant, more inclusive, equitable. This is part of the process, and the BHAACs are part of the process. So we have our commissioner set for an hour today to take us through more of that conversation. And we will have time for 2 sections of public comment, which I will call on, and then we will open up for public comment. Then we're going to talk about liaison positions I'm going to create today for the Advisory Council. We have in statute 4 other seated bodies that we can work with and should be working with. Some of you all, are sitting on those advisory bodies already and can be naturally appointed. But on today's agenda, we're going to talk about those ambassadorships, which I'm calling a liaison, to the statutory other collaborating task force. So we can build continuity, consistency, not step on each other's toes, and to continue to move the behavioral health work forward in Colorado. We're going to have a presentation on the strategic plan for the BHA. And what is a strategic plan? What are they to accomplish? So it's in draft form. We will have a draft form presentation on that today. Towards the end of the commission, I'm gonna wish our community and everyone a happy holidays. And then I'm going to be taking all of us that are seated and appointed to this Advisory Council into something that's called executive session, which I will train you all on, but I'm going to ask that you stay to 3 to 5 minutes at the end of this meeting. I have a 3 to 5 minute training for community. It's housekeeping and training since we are all seated new members. And it's a training I'd like to do for each and every one of us, and it'll take about 3 to 5 minutes. So that'll be executive session, and that will be closed to the community as I do a training for housekeeping. So I ask if you all can attend that 3 to 5 minutes at the end, please do so. I'll make sure I'm efficient with my delivery and getting that done. At this point in time, I'm going to go ahead and ask the state to start roll call.
Hello, this is Sarah Lucas. I'll be doing the roll call. All right, Karen Renee Anderson.
She's trying to get on, Sarah, so hopefully Renee will be joining us very soon.
Okay. Ash Anand. Robert Archuleta.
Present.
Bob Dorsheimer,
Present.
Raquel Garcia, Carolyn Hall, Tasha Kankar,
Present.
Dr. K. Ron Lee Liao,
Present.
Maria Martinez, Dr. Stacy Oberly, Jesse Pocock,
Present.
Kina Rowe, Noor Shafi, Raina Shaner, Andrea Savanich, Jamie Ulrich, Cameron Vigil, Catherine Washington,
Present.
Seth Watkins, and Sulin Whiteskunk.
Okay, Bob, I think that concludes the roll call. I am getting a few messages just for your information. Some folks are having technical difficulties joining the Zoom, so we may have a few more members join here shortly.
The Apple product folks, the link is Yumiko. So
probably.
Yes, that's what happened to me this morning, just to let you know. All right, so if I could have everybody's attention and welcome citizens and friends of Colorado. I have a special announcement I would like to make today before I get everything started. We are currently getting ready after 4 o'clock today in the next 48 hours, entering into a very dangerous weather emergency. All of our friends that are experiencing homelessness, please donate and help get things to local shelters. And at the same time, when you're thinking about our friends experiencing homelessness, and when you're outside in your hands and your feet are cold, please remember your pets. Your pets have that same exposure rate. Please bring in your pets. If your pets are not house trained and you have outbuildings, we are Colorado, please move them into outbuildings. Do what you can to protect your livestock and your furry family. Most importantly, make sure you reach out and check on neighbors during this time. There could be heating issues. Some people keep their heat off right now because of economic issues. So for the next 48 hours, please check on everyone and understand this is a weather emergency. It is the holiday season. We have a big holiday coming up this weekend. It's Hanukkah. Everyone that celebrates Hanukkah, I wish you an amazing time. And Christmas is coming. So this is a very joyful time for a lot of people, and it can also bring a lot of sadness. And this is a behavioral health group of folks. So I hope you all stay healthy and happy and do the great work that we do, which is checking on others, practice our techniques ourselves. And should we need support in Colorado, we are building out a robust safety net system, which we are part of right now. And, share this number. It's Colorado Crisis Services, 1-844-493-8255. And that's Colorado Crisis Services, and they have a lot of different resources that they can support our greater community with. So again, weather emergency, take care of everyone through a good trauma-informed behavioral health way. Have a safe and enjoyable holiday. And remember, it is going to be dangerously cold. And if you don't need to be outside, don't. If you have animals, bring them in. If you have outhouses, get them in that. And please check on your neighbors and make sure everyone is safe. 4 o'clock today is when the cold front is to hit, and we should experience a temperature drop significantly. That being said, thank you for allowing me to do my public health announcement. I put my public health hat on, so you're all very important to us, and I want you safe. At this point in time, if we could go ahead and pull up the housekeeping slide, and if you, Mika, if you can take us through the housekeeping slide, which includes group agreements and housekeeping rules.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Yes, just to quickly review our housekeeping items for today to keep the meeting moving smoothly along. All council members, you should be able to mute and unmute yourselves. But just to keep order within the meeting, please raise your hand and our chair, Bob, will acknowledge you. And for folks who are on the phone, if you could just identify yourself before speaking, that is always helpful. The chat feature is also available to everyone. For attendees, our public attendees who are on the call as well. We may not be able to get to all of your substantive comments and questions that are in the chat. And if we can't get to them in real time, we will address them in some other way. We have 2 periods throughout the meeting for public comment as well. Just to remind everyone, we are recording this meeting today for note-taking purposes, as well as for the few council members who were not able to attend today's meeting. And just as a reminder, on our BHA website, there is a page specifically for the BHAAC, and that is where we post all of our upcoming meeting dates, agendas, as well as minutes and slides. So that can all be available within our website. For now, if there are any questions or comments, and this is mainly for our public guests here today, the BHA has a general contact us form up on the webpage. But we'll be talking about later today about how to make a more BHAAC specific process for the public to engage with the council. So that more will be coming there. And then Sarah, if you can advance to the next slide. These are the group agreements that we've all agreed to, again, to make sure that we create a respectful, safe space here today for council members to engage in important discussion. So please keep these group agreements in mind as we move forward with today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, good morning, everyone. The next part is an important part of our agenda. You can find the minutes task force members, advisory members in the Google Docs folder. I'm asking everyone to review the minutes. Please let us know if there's any edits, changes, or additions, or any discussion that needs to be had about last month's minutes before I call to adopt them as an official record. So at this point in time, I'm going to give us all about 1 minute to review them and access them. And please ask any questions should you need any assistance during this time. So we are reviewing minutes. I'll be back in 1 minute.
And Bob, this is Yumiko. Sarah pointed out that it looks like we failed to vote and approve the previous meeting's minutes as well. So we actually need to approve the last 2 council meeting minutes.
All right, keeping on to the current minutes that we have before us. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
As a reminder, state your names for the record when we're firsting and seconding. Do I have discussion? According to roll call today, I do have quorum. The minutes have been adopted. Yamika, what is the date of our previous meeting? If you can help this old man remember the date of that. I know it was right after Thanksgiving, I think.
Yeah, Sarah, do you have that handy? The last meeting minutes?
Can we put those into the chat so people can have a review, and they should be in the Google folder as well. But I just want to reflect the date we're referring to for the record.
Sorry, we will pull that up here shortly. It's looking like it was from our August meeting, August 18th.
October 26th is the last meeting that I have on. It was August 8th, and then October 26th, I believe.
And we had a special session on November 30th.
That's correct. So which minutes, which date was skipped that we could catch up?
Sarah, can you please confirm for us which minutes the council needs to approve?
Yes, I'm pulling them up now. They are from August 18th.
Okay, perfect.
Right, if we could have August 18th minutes placed into the chat, and if advisory members can look through your Google Docs folder for that. I'm going to give us 1 minute to review those documents, and then I'm going to move us forward. I need a motion to approve. State your name.
So moved. Pocock.
I need a second. State your name.
I second that. Tasha Conker.
Do I have discussion, advisory members? I have quorum today. Motion passes. Minutes are adopted. Are there any other housekeeping items, our state partners, that I need to be aware of to take care of at this point in time? Okay. All right, thank you everyone. Getting through our housekeeping items today. I'm going to open it up right now for public comment and dialogue. So anyone from our community that has questions, needs further interaction with us, please raise your hand, state your name and your question, and we are taking public comment at this point in time. Do I have anybody in the waiting room with questions? And we will have another opportunity to communicate with the public later on the agenda as well. I'll give it another minute.
Bob, we do have one hand up. Looks like it's Megan Lovelace.
Megan Lovelace, good morning.
Hi, good morning. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for your service to our state and for being our voice. I'm a parent of a young child with complex needs, and my question today is around residential treatment facilities for youth and how this council is advising the Behavioral Health Administration as to specific whole person care safety measures for young people whom are in residential facilities across our state, as I have been attending those rules meetings and not really seeing language specifically around safety And I'm speaking about children eloping from those facilities and unfortunately losing their lives. How is this council addressing those specific issues moving forward? Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your question. I'm going to answer the part that is within my scope, and then I will turn that question and the other parts that are not within my scope over to our behavioral health commissioner. We are in the process of discussing today our subcommittee work group structure. So your question is a very valid and very important. When these questions come in to the advisory council, what I will be establishing today is an executive committee. The executive committee will review and either answer your question written or orally. If it's written, it'll go on the website. If it's oral, it will happen today if we can. But we are establishing a more formal process in order to meet the needs of the community as well as the question that you asked. I do know, as a behavioral health expert in Colorado, we are building out and building infrastructure in the behavioral health system when it comes to adolescents. As a passion of many of the members on this seated body, adolescence is a focus and most likely will be a work group. So to address your question on my behalf, we will be creating work groups and we will be taking questions and offering answers as we build a more robust system. We are in our infantile stages, but the more questions we get asked, the better I can create framework for this advisory council for the BHA. At this point, I'm going to ask our commissioner to come up to the mic to answer the rest of the adolescent concerns that you have. Commissioner?
Thank you, Chairman Bob, and I didn't have to walk very far to get to my mic this morning. I want to thank Megan for the question and also thank the people of Colorado for being a part of this meeting. My suggestion is that as we move forward, we have observed that advisory council members have attended the rule rewrite stakeholder sessions. And my recommendation to the Quality and Standards Division will be that we develop a more formal process for correlating community concerns with some of our revisions within the rule volume. I've also suggested to the Quality Division that we have some rule replay sessions, meaning where we allow community to review with us corrections as they are being made from session to session. So what we are planning to do is actually add on additional stakeholder engagement following the January 6th session, which had previously been labeled the final session. We're going to now have some what we're calling replay sessions where community can come and actually review the revisions, the corrections, the updates to ensure that the language that community is advocating for is accurately placed and represented before we have to go before the State Board of Human Services. I hope that is an acceptable approach. And so I would say that primarily we're hoping to extend that process as far as we can to still stay on top of deadlines with the State Board. I will also note this concern specifically with our safety net licensing team, and we will review the safety language in residential facilities. Thank you.
Do we have further public comment at this time?
I don't see anything, Bob, so I think we are good.
All right. To all of the community members, I will open up for public comment after the presentation we will have today by Dr. Medlock on the BHAAC, which will be a very exciting conversation, both for advisory and community. So we will have another opportunity. At this point in time, I appreciate the question. It helps me set up the next part of the agenda, which is I want to talk with my colleagues on the Advisory Council to handle questions in an efficient, equitable way. I'm going to call for the creation of an executive committee, which will help me, the chair and the co-chair, handle our work groups. It'll be an inclusive decision-making body. And most importantly, we will be able to work with community, fielding those questions, answering those questions. And when we cannot answer those questions, our state partners, we will refer that to the state partners. So, so the executive committee, I'm looking for 3 to 5 members. The first discussion is to all of you. Do you see it as 3? Do you see it as 5? I'm opening that up now for discussion. 3 to 5, raise your hand. Go ahead and speak out. We're at the informal part of our meeting right now. I'd like to have a 5-minute dialogue on, is it 3 or 5? My preference would be 3 to make it tight and working, since we have 2 co-chairs.
Bob, looks like you have 2 hands up. I'm not sure if you're able to see the screen.
I'm not able to see the hands. Yumiko, if you could help me with the hands today. Raquel's not here. That would
sure.
Be great.
Absolutely. Let's go with Seth and then Tina.
Good morning, Seth.
Hello. Sorry, I've been kind of dealing with technology problems. I recommend the 5 if it includes the chair and the vice chair. I think 3 is not enough if it's without the vice chair and the chair, but I think a group of 5 is good. We don't need a group of 7. So, I mean, if that's the way I look at it, if both the vice chair and the chair are going to be a part of that committee or that subgroup, then I'm okay with it. But I think it should be 5 people in general, as far as like people included. 3 people just isn't enough, I think.
Yes, the expectation is that the chair and the co-chair are part of the executive committee. Next question.
Tina, I think you had your hand up.
Got to find the mic. I think that 3 additional is reasonable to add to the chair and co-chair, but I think a little bit more information as to what all the topics that would be covered would be helpful to really decide what is an adequate number, because without knowing what all they're covering, it's a little difficult to know what is a suitable number of people. Does that make sense?
Yes. So right now I can answer that question. As we are new, there's going to be 2 primary functions of the executive committee. The executive committee is to work with the chairs when we are receiving information from our website. We're going to review those questions, figure out how to respond to those questions, either by executive committee and our authority to be able to write and respond and post our response, of course, with our partners from the state. If it is out of our scope, the questions that are coming in from community, executive committee and I will then forward that to the appropriate party at the BHA. So that's one function. The second function, and there's only going to be 2 functions at this point in time as we will grow and mature as an advisory body. The second function is when I need to start calling for work groups, which I will here very quickly. We will need to be able to have a chair of the work group. And then because we are inclusive and we believe in being transparent, we need to take a 1-page application and a statement of interest, so to speak, of why you want to join the work group. And this is on the community's behalf. What will happen with that application for the work group, it will come up to the executive committee and we will discuss it. and approve it, and then take it to the main body for final approval and appointment to our work group structure. So those are the two functions right now. And as we evolve, obviously executive committee would evolve with it. But those are the two functions I feel that we are ready for at this point in time. Was that sufficient?
I think that was very helpful. And I agree that 3 additional people would be sufficient to cover those duties.
Okay, in the interest of time, I think unless there isn't any objections, and this is our informal part of the creation of the executive committee. Yes.
We do have Karen and Tasha that have their hands up also. I know
Great.
You can't see that. Sorry.
Thanks, Tina.
Go ahead, please.
Tasha Conker. The one question that I have is how many groups are there going to be for the subcommittee? So it could be divided up equally, and so we can all lay and cross the bridges and fill the gaps and have total transparency and communication within the committee.
So Tasha, as the work evolves here at the advisory body, we have the authority to create work groups. So as we identify community needs regionally, as we are required to make sure that we are responding regionally and locally to Coloradans, the executive committee in this body will be deciding on how to identify and work through those problems through the work group structure this body needs to have. Now, as I said on the agenda, we're also going to have liaisons from this advisory body, which means we might not take on everything. We might pass something off to our liaison because the question and the need may be best answered in another body. So that's also what the executive committee is going to be helping me do, is making sure that we are addressing the needs and getting the questions and the needs to the right body. Or if there isn't a way to do that, then we will create a work group. So there isn't a number of work groups that is a cap or anything like that. It's based on the workflow and how we identify the workflow and the creation of those work groups to solve and identify problems.
Thank you so much for clarifying my question, and I appreciate. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Next question.
This was Renee. Renee Anderson. I just wanted to say that I felt that 3 is a good number as well, as long as the chair and co-chair are a part of that as well. That was all I wanted to add.
Thank you. Are there any other hands?
Bob, there's a comment in the chat, and I'll be happy to read it out loud if you would like.
Thank you.
And the chat message is from Council Member Pocock, and it says, for workload purposes and diversity of experience and thought, I would recommend 5 members to serve on the executive committee.
Okay, I'm in agreement. At this point, if there isn't any other hands or discussion, if somebody can let me know, I'm going to move us to a motion for the creation of an executive committee. Any further dialogue, advisory colleagues? My recommendation is for us to move to a motion. If someone will craft the statement that you all just had a discussion on in your desires of either 3 or 5, make sure that you put the number in the statement that we've all agreed to. And that's what will be consistent of our new executive committee. And then I will move towards a quick conversation on who wants to be seated on supporting us. Could I have a motion, please?
I'll motion that we have a group of 3 additional members to add to the chair and co-chair to create the Oh, what was it? The
Executive Committee.
Executive Committee for the BHAAC.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second, Councilmember Pocock.
Do I have discussion? So moved. Congratulations. We are now getting more structure and moving along as an advisory body. So we have a governance now, and now we have an executive committee. So I applaud everybody as we are moving forward as a body. Now, really, because we're tight on time today, who would like to serve on this executive committee? What I'm going to do in the interest of time is ask you to email Yamoko and I, and we'll just go through and have a conversation, and I'll come back to this. But today was the importance of getting this established. I got it established, and then we will work for the 3 additional members to join us. So if you're interested, shoot us an email to me as well as Yamiko, and we will take it from there. If there's any other kind of questions or confusion, I will make sure that it is brought back to the next advisory council to solve any of the problems that I'm not able to as chair. But it is within my authority to do the appointing. So to move us along efficiently, I look forward to those emails and why you want to serve. That would be fantastic. Thank you so much.
Wait, Bob, we do have one hand up from Seth.
All right, Steph, please. Good morning.
Hi, Councilmember Seth Watkins. What I'm concerned about is how long will the terms of these executive members be? I know we know the terms of the vice chair and the chair. And will the executive committee, in collaboration with the bylaws committee, work to solve the appointment timeframes of those people on the executive committee? Because I don't necessarily think like the executive committee might want to, or that they should serve for like 3 years consecutively. I think there should be an openness of like changing people on the committee as it grows.
Seth, my entire intention is to take it to the rules and bylaws committee to create that. So you're exactly right on where my thinking was. And that's where we'll take that and make those decisions together within our Chairman Tasha's sub work group. So yes, that's where that decision will be made. Does that answer your question, Seth? Okay. At this point, and thank you everyone. This is very exciting that we're moving forward. I'm going to close this part of the agenda, and I'm going to move us forward to a brand new person that has been hired to the state that we would like an introduction on. Angelina, I hope you're present today. Welcome. Who are you? What do you do? And come talk with us.
Thank you, Bob. I am here today. Very excited to be here today. So brief intro, because I know we like to stay on schedule and I want folks to have a chance to ask questions if they have any. So my name's Angelina Callis, she, her pronouns. As the slide says, I was just hired. I started last Monday, so I've just been here barely over a week. I am the BHA's Director for Equity and Community Guided Practice. We are still figuring out, and when I say we, I mean like me, Yumiko, Dr. Medlock, input from you folks on like what that role means and what it does. Right now, I'm working very closely with the internal BHA folks and the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Matrix team to kind of learn what they've been doing. And I'm here today, absolutely, to see what my role is in BHAAC. So super honored, very excited to meet you all. And I hope and think that we will be spending lots of time together in the future. So that's the super fast version. I'm happy to like tell folks about my history and my work experience, but I don't know that anyone really wants to know that kind of stuff. I feel like maybe I'd rather do questions.
I absolutely do. Yes, this is what we're all about, is equity, inclusion, and diversity. And I have us on schedule, so you do have some time. So who are you?
Yeah, okay. So I'll do the quick version, and then Seth, I do see your hand up, so I want to make sure I get to you. So I was born and raised in Colorado. I'm actually third generation. My grandfather was born here and still lives here. My dad was born here and still lives here. My grandfather was the child of two immigrants, one from Greece and one from Mexico. And so born and raised in Boulder County, like Lafayette, Louisville, Longmont areas. And then I went away to school in Seattle, and then in Austin, and then back to Colorado. And I actually have spent the majority of my career working with tribal child welfare agencies. So most of my history is in child welfare, but as folks know, there's big crossover between all of our systems. So behavioral health and child welfare have a lot of interaction, let me say it that way. So I spent lots of years doing that work, helping tribal child welfare agencies gain access to federal funds, helping them implement data systems, helping them define practice and policy for their own communities. And then more recently, I have been working with the Capacity Building Center for States, which is a part of the Children's Bureau Technical Assistance arm, build a racial equity coaching model for their own internal staff that will hopefully be scaled up and be allowed to be used in states with child welfare jurisdictions. So that's like the very quick version of my background. And then Seth, I see your hand is up, so I'd love to talk to you more.
Yeah, I just had a question. So I know that because I'm on the State Medicaid Experience Advisory Council, I know that at HICPUF there is a diversity, equity, and inclusion member of their executive team. Is there going to be collaboration between you and that person on HICPUF that is going to collaborate on stuff for the BHA? Because I think it would there's a lot of stuff that, I mean, he's given presentations to the member advisory council, and there's a lot of work that they've been doing, as far as diversity, equity, inclusion, that is now a part of HICPUF. And so, I mean, there should be some support there. That I don't know his name. He's a very nice young Black guy, but he's a really cool guy, knows a lot about diversity, equity, inclusion, and he might be a valuable resource for you.
Yeah, that's great, Seth. Thank you so much. I'll be honest, I did not know that HICPUF had their own person, but I absolutely, in the spirit of the creation of the new BHA, right? That is exactly what we want to do, which is collaborate between agencies and co-create with communities. So I will find out who they are, and I will set up a meeting with them so that we can start working on our collaboration.
It looks like his name is Aaron Green, according to Dr. Medlock. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Medlock.
Sorry.
I'm not keeping an eye on the chats yet. But
I'm not good with names, so.
No, thank you, Seth. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I think that's important stuff, and I want to know it. And y'all might see me look down every once in a while. It's because I need to take notes about things so I remember. Please forgive me. I hope it's not rude. Okay, any other questions for me as we, I'll be on these meetings, of course, so please feel free to reach out. I'll put my email in the chat too, so people can reach out individually if you'd like to.
Thank you so much, and we appreciate you, and happy holidays and welcome to the team.
Thank you so much.
Well, we all have that amazing trauma-informed training. We believe in trauma-informed care in Colorado as a bedrock of our beliefs. I'm going to ask Kelly to come up to the mic to do a trauma wellness check-in with the task force. Kelly?
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I so appreciate being invited back. I want to start first and foremost, if I can ask your permission for all of us to please reflect in a moment of silence and respect and honor for the members of our community who were lost in the Club Q tragedy. I would like to acknowledge that loss both for our community as well as our nation. So if we can just have a moment in honor and respect of that, I'm gonna ask your permission. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I would be remiss if I didn't begin with that in light of my role with the trauma-informed care in Colorado. So I just want to do a follow-up, and I don't want to inundate anyone with tons of new information. I think what I want to do more is just a check-in this morning, because particularly because it's this time of year, it's the end of the year, we are being inundated probably with end of year work projects, as well as lots of things going on personally in everyone's life. And as was stated at the beginning of this meeting, I just want to remind everyone that, you know, while I know the colloquialism is it's the most wonderful time of the year, I just want to acknowledge that for many people that may not be the case, that holidays are also a time where people may struggle with having to deal with family dynamics, having to deal with either being with or not being able to be with families. I think it's a time of year when people may struggle with sobriety because of, you know, holiday parties and things like that. We may be struggling right now with, I know my family and I, we've been struggling with being sick, and everyone in the family trying to take care of each other and getting well. I think this can be a hard time for folks with financial struggles, housing struggles, issues with chronic pain. And I'm not trying to be a downer, but I just want to acknowledge that that we see you, we hear you, and we are here for you as well. You are never alone. And I just want to acknowledge that, you know, a reminder that people have the ability to heal people, and communities have the ability to heal communities. So that being said, I just want to ask everybody to reflect for a minute on what parts of you did you bring with you to this meeting today? We all got up this morning, we got ourselves ready, and maybe despite some challenges and obstacles, we logged on and we're here. And so I want you to think for a minute about what part of you made it so that you are here, so that you are present for this meeting, despite maybe obstacles. And I just want you to acknowledge and thank that part of you for being here and being ready to do the work. And I want to say that it's not the expectation that we are all here maybe 100%. And so I want you to also acknowledge for a minute, what might you be struggling with this morning? What might be getting in the way? And what do you need in order to be able to put that aside for a minute and do the work that you need to do right now? So just reflect for a moment on what might be going on that's getting in the way, and ask that those things, just for this meeting right now, to sit silently in the corner so that we may focus on this work, to honor the purpose of what we're doing and to give meaning to what we're doing. Okay, thank you for that. I just want to acknowledge that since I've been at your last meeting, that we have experienced a community and national tragedy with Club Q. And I am going to put a resource that I have in the link. I don't have, I want to honor our time. I don't have time to go through all of them. But again, the National Child Traumatic Stress Network has a wealth of resources in dealing with mass violence and mass tragedy for community leaders, for parents of children, for teenagers. And so I will put that resource. They are free, downloadable, 1-page, 2-page resources that you are absolutely free and able to look through and use, utilize as would be helpful for you. I will say a few things that I think can be helpful, particularly, I want to say, you know, if you were impacted by that tragedy, but I don't know anybody that was not impacted by that tragedy, particularly the folks of Colorado. And so I want to say to continue to do things to take care of yourself. Do the things that you know work for you that are healthy. So call a friend, sit in the sun, hug your dog or cat or rabbit or ferret or whatever animals it may be that you have. Spend time with people who honor you and treasure you. So reach out to others. And I would say limit exposure to media if it's triggering or upsetting to you. I personally have to limit what I watch or the world can be a really ugly place. And so do the things that you need to do to take care of you. And if you're doing those things and you feel like they aren't working, please don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. There was a phone number, the crisis line was listed at the beginning of this. Hopefully it's in the chat, and if not, I can put that in the chat as well. Do what you need to do to take care of others, but also do what you need to do to take care of yourself. So I just want us to think for a minute about the parts that make up ourselves. So we have our parent part and our council member parts and our partner parts and all the other things that combine to make us whole. And I want you to think particularly, again, about the part that brought you to this meeting today. I want to honor that part, and I want to celebrate that part, and I want to thank that part. So we all have different backgrounds, stories, reasons for being here. And I just want to remind you that that part of you is what gives meaning to this work. This work would not be complete without that part of you. And so I think that there can be healing in channeling our stories and our histories into this work. We have a great opportunity here to make changes, make a difference. And so I'll encourage you at the beginning of any of these meetings to just take a moment and reflect on that part of you, channel that part, honor that part, and encourage that part to be present and speak up during these meetings, because what you have to say is very valuable. Let's see. Lastly, I think what's really important, you know, I said we're made up of a lot of parts. So we have that part that brought us here this morning. And we have all those other parts that are swimming around. We've got to take care of sick kids. We're worried about this winter storm that's coming up. We have maybe the holidays looming ahead of us. So we've got a lot of things going on. And I want to think for a minute about how to not get overwhelmed. I think it can be very easy to get overwhelmed this time of year. So I just want you to engage. I'm going to ask you to play along with a quick activity with me. I want you to imagine a box. It can be any type of box, but the more attributes that you give it, the more powerful this will be. So it can be a purple box with a gold ribbon. It can be a wooden treasure box. It can be, whatever you would like to creatively conjure up in your mind. And I want you to think about that box or that treasure chest or Tupperware bowl. I want you to also imagine that it has a lid. And I want you to think about the things that might be getting in the way, that might be causing you worry or being overwhelmed, or that might just be that extra noise in your mind. And I want you to kind of lasso those in your mind and think about, just for right now, putting those things in that box and putting the lid on it. And just for now, not forever, because that's not the goal, but just for now, putting those things away in that box or that bowl or that treasure chest, that container, and containing them just so that we can be here and do the work that gives us meaning. And we're going to ask that those can be contained just while we have this meeting. And I want you to give strength and breath and life to the part of you that the part of you that brought yourself here today to be here for this meeting. And again, I want to remind you that people have the opportunity to heal other people, and communities absolutely have the opportunity to heal communities. And that's why we're here. So I'll put those resources in the chat. My goal today was just to hopefully give everybody the opportunity to be present for this meeting. I know we have a lot going on, and I want to honor that. So I'll put some resources in the chat. I so appreciate you asking me to be here. And, when we're finished with this meeting, or when you're finished with your day, or when you have an hour at lunch, you can take the time to take the lid off that box and do some prescribed worrying and think about what you want to think about. But at any point that you need to, you can ask those worries to sit to the side for just a little bit so that you can focus on the things that give you meaning and bring you life too. We all deserve that. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful holiday. And thank you for all the work that you do. We really appreciate it, and I personally appreciate it.
Kelly, thank you so much. And we want to say back at you. We hope you practice and take care of yourself. And we hope that you're safe and healthy during the holiday season as well, because all of us caregivers sometimes do forget about ourselves. So from one caregiver to another, take care of you. Next up on the agenda, which is really exciting because we're moving along as an advisory council, I would like to introduce Tasha Connor, our chairperson over governance and our subcommittee work group on bylaws. And this is where we're having all of this great conversation on creating structure for the BHA Advisory Council. So Tosh, you're on deck. Welcome.
Welcome, guys. Thank you for being joining us at this advisory council meeting today. It's my pleasure to bring a lot of progress to what we've made. Our purpose of this subcommittee is to focus on the development and implement on governments and bylaws for the Behavioral Health Administration Advisory Council, BHAAC. The subcommittee will promote accountability to ensure that the Behavioral Health Administration Advisory Council, BHAAC, adheres to the bylaws while doing business. The subcommittee may also develop administrative policies and other guidances as needed, or governance as needed. Since our last meeting, I believe, which was in October, we have held 3 meetings. Those meeting dates were November 28th, of 2022, December 9th of 2022, and December 19th, 2022. I need the members who are on the subcommittee, and we've all worked together hard, so I got to give them a shout out because we're a team and we worked really hard together and got a lot accomplished. Adria Savinci, Raina Shaner, Catherine Washington, and Seth Watkins, along with BHA staff to guide us and everything else. Let's see. Our update, we have typed out and got together the subcommittee charter that is complete in this time frame, and we are working on the bylaws. Let me pull up my bylaws. We have gotten through Article 1, and there's some questions and finer details that we're getting into as this meeting today is going to provide us more information to be able to hone in on what needs to be I's dotted, T's crossed. We also, so in Article, the creation, we finished that. The Article 2 of the organization, like I said, there is still more information pending, and we will be having more finer details and information available as we progress. We got a lot done. We're still working on bylaws. We're at Section 3 on Article 2 still. So we got through A, B, C, and the parts of those. And we're at Article 2, Section 3 is where we were stopped at as of December 19th meetings. So we have done a lot of progression, and we've got a lot accomplished, and we couldn't have done it if it wasn't for this council and the amazing people on this council and their input and their passion. So yeah, that's where we're at with this, and I'm going to kick it back to Rob.
You've all done an amazing job. Are there any committee members in the workforce governance that would like to say anything before I move on?
Seth has his hand up.
Mr. Seth?
Yeah, sorry. I just also want to congratulate Tasha for doing such a good job of making us feel like a team doing the bylaws. And also I want to thank, you, Bob, for being there with your experience, strength, and hope to guide us with some of the bylaw, formation and stuff. Your advice has been very helpful. And I think we're getting to the heart of that subcommittee and the bylaws. And I think that's coming out in the discussions that we're having.
Thank you for including me, and I've really enjoyed being with you guys and like the work. I think a lot of good stuff is about to come. So thank you. And yes, I absolutely think Tasha is a great chairperson, and she's doing a fantastic job. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I want to thank you, Bob, too. Your expertise is immaculate, and everybody else a part of that on the professional levels. And I appreciate the guidance and the support from everybody for not only myself as the chair, but for our team for governance and bylaws. So thank you.
All right, we've got good synergy going. So this conversation dovetails into the next part of our agenda, which is really important. So there are other seated bodies by statute that work with us. And in the bylaws, we are having a conversation. So we've established executive committee today. The next thing for structure and moving the advisory body forward, because part of life is change and momentum. And my job as chair is to keep us moving with the vision that the BHA has for the advisory council. The next piece I want to talk about is the creation of liaisons. The liaisons are individuals that are already seated, maybe on another board and commission, or they can be appointed by me to that board and commission. What is a liaison? A liaison is someone that goes to our sister or brother behavioral health entity, group, board, commission, task force. They all come with fancy names. But in other words, there's a few in statute that I would like to create today, liaisons, so we can start building collaboration, friendship, and work between these other Coloradan seated task force, so we can start building synergy with the BHA Advisory Council. So that being said, there is a few in statute. Yumiko, do we have a slide on that? This also goes with the administrative work group. I was combining these two.
Sorry, Bob, we are displaying the slide.
All right, you got the slide up, perfect.
Yep.
All right, there it is, work group structure. Thank you so much. This is what happens when you work off of 3 screens. You guys can't see what I got going here, but this is how I manage the meeting on 3 screens. So we need to appoint somebody as a liaison to the Behavioral Health Planning and Advisory Council. I'm currently the chairperson for that. So I don't think it would be appropriate for me to be a liaison, but I would love to start working with someone as I am transitioning out of that chairmanship as well as that council. I'm on 2 bonus years because of COVID. So we need to have that conversation today. We also have another in statute, the Mental Health Advisory Board for Services and Standards and Rules. And then there in statute is Child and Youth Mental Health Services Standards Advisory Board pursuant section 2767-109. And I do believe those are the 3 top liaison positions that we need to discuss today to make sure that the synergy between their task forces, and I'm using the word task force, I'm sure they're named something different, but for today's reason, let's just go with my simplicity of conversation so we all don't get stuck. So these 3 task forces, do I have anyone seated on any of these 3 right now? And if you are seated on one of these 3 right now, please raise your hand.
Bob, I'm sorry, I don't know how to raise my hand.
Is this Renee?
This is Raina, and I'm on the Mental Health Advisory Board.
You're on, you are on the Mental Health Advisory Board in Services and Standards and Rules, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, not to be mixed with youth, child, mental health.
Correct.
Okay, because you are already seated on that, I do have the ability to appoint within our bylaws and structures you to the liaison position. And what a liaison position is bringing information back and forth, which will come from executive committee, what water we want you carrying forward and what water we want you bringing back. So these will be brand new positions. We will be working them through, but they're ambassadorships. They're friendly. So it's a way that, so what I would do, Renee, is have you add it to the agenda, and you would be able to give us information about what's going on within the other body. And I would set you up with executive committee statements to bring to the other commission, so that way we can stay fluid together. So does that make sense on why we're creating the liaison positions today, advisory members?
Yes.
All right. Do you accept the appointment?
I do.
Are there anyone a part of the advisory council that would like further discussion based on my appointment? Please say so now.
Bob, just clarification, that's Raina, not Renee.
Raina, thank you for the correction.
And Seth had his hand up, but Seth, I don't know if you were wanting to speak specifically to this liaison position.
No, it was other boards and councils and stuff. So
how about I come back to you in a minute and we finish up this appointed position. Is there any other discussion for Raina being appointed to liaison for this position of building a relationship with the Mental Health Advisory Board and Services and Standards Rule Task Force? If there is no other discussion, I'm asking for an informal vote to show support of this decision. Everyone, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Raina, congratulations. You have the first liaison position on the behalf of the BHA Advisory Council. Congratulations. We will develop that more, that position more effectively, certainly in our bylaws and subcommittee governance group that we have right now. So, but basically in a very high level way, it's an ambassadorship to share information, to bridge information, to keep continuity of care between commissions, and to make sure we're not duplicating or complicating work for the BHA and other departments throughout the state. So that's a high level job description, so to speak, of what a liaison is, but we will definitely get more formal for you. But in the interest of today, I wanted to move us forward and to start building structure. Do I have interest in people that have interest in BHAAC, which is the Behavioral Health Planning and Advisory Council? And do I have people that are interested in the Child, Youth, and Mental Health Services Standard Advisory Board? These are the two open liaison positions I would like to appoint today. I would like to start with Children, Youth, Mental Health Services and Standard Advisory. So if you're not interested in that, put your hand down. If you are, put your hand up. That's what we're starting right now. So who, Yamiko, can you help me with who has their hand up first?
So you've got 3 hands up here, Ron Lee, Karen Renee, and Tasha.
Ron Lee, good morning.
Good morning. How are you all? It's good to see you all. I definitely, this is an area of significant interest and dedication around child and youth mental health services standards and building a continuum for kids in Colorado. So would be an honor to serve as an ambassador.
Thank you. Next, was it Tasha?
Tasha Conker here. My interest in this is it's very important to me, and it's a sole passion, and as well as Coloradoans for children and youth mental health service standards, because those are our future generations to come. And setting these standards at this time will give them an opportunity so they can thrive instead of struggle through life and get the proper help that they need at that age and become successful. Thank you.
Okay. And the third person, I'm sorry.
Karen Renee.
Hi, it's Karen Renee Anderson.
Hi.
with lived experience and having a child with mental health issues that has gone through many different systems, this is an area that I'm very passionate about and wanting to see how things can be developed to make it better for our youth, because they are our future. So that's one area I'm very interested in.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to explain. Is there any other interest, or is the interest at these three for the Child, Youth, Mental Health and Services Standard Advisory Board? Are we done with nominations? As a reminder, if you're not speaking, please have your mic turned off. All right, so for all three of these interested task force advisory members, please send me and Yumiko an email with a brief description on why you want to join this as a liaison. And I will have a dialogue with you three, and then we'll make announcements in the interest of moving forward. That's how I would like to handle this. If there's any objections, please let me know. But for the first round of the creation of this advisory body, I'm going to be moving us forward until we have more established rules in the bylaws. But the bylaws do state that I can appoint, and I'll do that now until we have everything else in place in a more democratic way. So Ronnie, Tasha, and Renee, please send me an email and just a brief what you want to do, and we'll have a little bit of a dialogue. I'm moving us forward now. Is there discussion? I have a hand. Seth?
Yeah, Bob. Is this gonna, I know you have the ability to appoint people to like liaison positions and committee chairs and stuff, but like, is there a way for the rest of us like to have a poll like we did for like the chair and vice chair, just to like kind of suggest who we as other council members might want to see like in that liaison position? I mean, I don't want to be like overstepping authority, but like, you know, there might be some like input that we as other council members might think would fit that liaison position a little bit better than another person and stuff like that.
Right. I agree with you, Seth, and thank you for the question. I believe when we're done with the bylaws and the subcommittee section that we kind of parking lotted till today, I would agree with you. We should write that in moving forward and making sure that that is a concrete way that we operate. But in the interest of that this advisory meets 6 times per year, I felt it was important for us to get moving for the first part. Since this is brand new, I'm just taking the ownership and the responsibility to get us moving. And then from there, it needs to follow policies, procedures, and the rules that is coming out of our rules committee. Does that help, Seth?
It does help with like right now. I just like, I mean, I have some like input that I might want to suggest, you know, about some of the people that might want to like be appointed to that liaison committee. And I just would want to like, you know.
Well, Seth, absolutely send me an email. I look forward to hearing from you. Yeah.
Okay, I'll send you an email then.
Yeah, anyone on the advisory council that has thoughts on this, please send me an email. I still want it to be an open process and conversation, but in the interest of trying to move us forward while we're building our values, our rules, and our bylaws, we do need to get the work moving and the momentum. But by all means, have dialogue with me, and I can certainly set up a Zoom meeting if we need a larger conversation. I'm always available to you all. The next session I want to move towards for advisory members. And remember, there's 20 of us. You're all going to be doing something somewhere. So everybody's going to have a chance to be involved. There is a lot of work ahead of us. So don't worry about their a lack of work or being able to be committed to something. Next, who is interested in BHAAC? That's the Behavioral Health Planning and Advisory Council. I've been on that, oh gosh, maybe, I think 8 years. And really what that is we advise OBH related to the block grant structure that comes in from SAMHSA. And we take a look at epidemiology, statistics, and we really try to help identify gaps and service gaps within the continuum of care in Colorado, and then use those dollars to build in a better safety net. That commission is heavily, it's 51% made up of people of lived experience. Once again, fantastic. The other 49% is service providers and state members that are on that. I've loved BHAAC. I think that's why I've been on for 8 years. We have rich conversations in recovery, prevention, intervention, and treatment. Those are the domains that we operate in and communicate in. We also have influence and suggestion over state policies that are presented to us. So we can talk about how the block grant and the safety net of the block grants can best fit and serve those purposes. So is there any other questions of me on what BHAAC is? And do I have interest in someone wanting to be a liaison? Please put up your hands. Okay,
Yep,
I do see, go ahead, Yumiko.
Oh, nope. If you see it, that's great. But you've got a few here: Carolyn Hall, Robert Archuleta, and Karen Renee. I'm not sure if you're raising your hand for this one or if it's a holdover. Looks like it's a holdover. So you've got 2 up, Bob.
I was
Robert?
wondering, how often do they meet, Bob?
Oh, yeah, I can answer that. So they do meet monthly, and there is work groups a part of that as well. But the way I have that structured is the work groups are actually now within the body of the meetings. So that way we're not spending more time outside of, it's the first Thursday of every month is when we meet. So the first Thursday in January, and we have public as well. So if you're interested and you want to do a drive-by on it and come see what we do, you're welcome, because this is going to be a liaison brother-sister relationship to the advisory council. So once a month with work groups, and the work groups are related around those disciplines that I spoke to you about. We're pretty tightly focused on that group. So it is really about recovery, treatment, intervention, and prevention. And that is our scope. And then our scope is how to create recommendations about the block grant. Rob?
Hi, I just wanted to say that I am passionate about all of the modalities that you mentioned. I'm a certified prevention specialist. I've worked as a prevention educator. I still oversee our prevention program here at Crossroads. I've also worked in intervention in withdrawal management, and someone with lived experience who now works in treatment and has earned their PhD in human behavior. Thank you, Tasha. And behavioral health. I'm super passionate about it. This fits into what I've done from the beginning of my career to this point. And I just think I could be an asset carrying, like you said, carrying that water back and forth and being passionate about what we do and keeping everything streamlined, structured in the way I see things and the agenda that we have as an advisory committee. So thanks. And I'm learned to raise my hand, Bob, since you can't see the hands.
Next, who do we have? Was it Carolyn?
Yeah, you have me. So what I wanted to, I'm kind of interested, but what I need to know is what time is the meeting on the first Thursday?
Yeah, absolutely. We go 9 to 12.
9 to 12. Okay.
And we generally never get out early.
Okay. That's all right. I just have such a tight schedule. I'm very interested. My understanding as a liaison is someone who bridges between committees and meetings to help give an understanding of what each person's working on to create harmony, but it also helps to stop any overworking, right? Like we're working on too much stuff and maybe in different directions. So having that connection between the both for us and for them. And I think it also eases a lot of anxiety around, what are we doing and what are they doing? And so I think it's a harmonious thing. And so I do have interest in it, being a liaison for the BHAAC for sure.
Great, thank you. So it is an ambassadorship. So basically, right now we're creating them as ambassadorships, these liaisons, and as the work and the BHA starts increasing its capacity, it's at 20%. As we start receiving more information from the community that comes through executive committee, as our ambassador liaisons start identifying work needs, and we now have channels of communication to the other seated bodies. This is what's going to help drive the work groups within our structure. So we don't want to do duplication of efforts. We want to complement all these efforts. So thank you for your interest. And again, just send me a brief email and your desire, and we'll have a chat. So who else, please?
You have Tina Rowe.
Hi, Tina. Good morning.
Good morning. So one of the hardest things is for rural and frontier communities to have a voice, and being able to communicate back and forth, and also have rural and frontier communities to be able to be represented and heard is so important. It's very difficult for that voice to be represented and heard, as services are very different out here. And I think that would be a huge opportunity to be able to make sure that we have representation that allows for the services to be equal and fitting for the needs of our communities in Fremont, Chaffee, Custer, and Lake. It's so important to meet those needs. So not just that, but for our special needs communities here.
Absolutely, thank you. Appreciate you. Any other discussion or members interested in BHAAC? All right, the same standard is just send me an email to both Yumiko and I. We'll have just a brief conversation. Again, this is me moving us forward, getting things structured. Miss Chairwoman Tasha and her subcommittee will be designing rules and boundaries, and we will be more official when this comes up again, liaisons and appointing situations. So I will make sure that I honor Seth's request. By all means, everything will be transparent, equitable, and democratic. For right now, I'm just taking the responsibility to move us forward on our workload, goals, and outcomes to make sure we're meeting the deliverables of what this advisory body was set to do. All right, so thank you. I'm going to close that part of our agenda. I appreciate everyone. Again, we've got executive committee established today. We've got liaisons established today. We have a work subgroup going right now. You're all doing fantastic. This is excellent. Yes, put up the hands that are floating. I see on the screen there. That's really exciting for me.
Hey, Bob.
Seth.
Yeah, I want to go back to the liaison part a little bit, because there are other councils that we should have ambassadorship and involvement with. I sit on 2 of them, and that's the Medicaid Experience Advisory Council for the state. And I do report to them what the BHA and what the council is doing, like every time we have a meeting once a month. And then on the Colorado Access, Ray you know, Ray 3 and 5, I sit on that member advisory council, and, you know, they ask questions too. So it's like, and I hear, you know, about, you know, Tina's like thing about like, you know, rural representation and stuff. And I know that we're going to talk about the BASOs and like representation on those, but you know, I think there should be like other councils that we should have liaisons for as well. And if we don't discuss it today, we could discuss it at a future meeting. But
Seth, I absolutely agree with you. Just in transparency, everybody, what I'm doing is I pulled this language out of statute for what governs us. So there are plenty of things we can be doing, but I'm trying to cover our workflow that is statute driven right now. And that's what this is. But Seth is correct. And I too have some ideas of areas we need to be supporting and advocating. But for right now, I'm covering the workforce that was designed for us to do by statute, so we can catch up on that. And yes, Seth, please parking lot this need and bring it back, because your thought is welcomed and I think it's appropriate. Tina.
I have to second that, because I do report to the BHAAC for Ray 4 and the Ray 4 meetings. So I just give them a little update as far as how we've been meeting and just the public information. So that's what I've been doing just recently, as we are a public meeting.
Absolutely. So to all advisory members, I hear you. I'm covering statute right now. We will evolve once I get out of statute. So give me an opportunity with the Rules Committee to get things created. Please allow me the opportunity to get Executive Committee up and running. When we have these more formal processes set up, which we are doing, Tina and Seth, I will be able to move us more forward and expand us. But I don't want to overreach us without policies and procedures, training, and messaging, which is what we're going to talk about in executive session for 3 to 5 minutes at the end of this meeting today. All right, so thank you all. I appreciate you. I am going to move us forward. Did we have a guest today from the Administrative Burden Work Group?
No, Bob. So this is Yumiko. We decided to cancel that. So this is an example of another existing group, the Administrative Burden Work Group, that had written a formal request to become a work group within the BHAAC. And Bob, I believe one of your suggestions was that those types of requests would go to the executive committee for consideration. So this was just a note along the lines of what Seth and others were saying, that there are definitely other groups and committees out there that touch on this work. And the executive committee may be a place to have some of that discussion about what is the relationship, or formally folding them into the BHAAC.
Right, and I had an official request from a recovery group as well. So this is why we've created the executive committee to address the administrative work group letter that they've written to us. And then there's other work groups. So Tina and Seth, we will be addressing this once I can get the formalities down, so we have good operating procedures. So at this point in time, we've reached our time where you need to go let the fur babies out before it gets cold. Refresh your tea and coffee. It is approximately, I'm going to say 10:40. I want everyone back, please, after break at 10:50, and the recording can stop. We're officially on break till 10:50. Hi, everyone. I hope you guys had a break where you practiced some trauma, some breathing, taking care of yourself, feeling excited about the progress we are making here as an advisory council. At this point in time, I would like to read something, and then I'm going to introduce Dr. Madlock to talk about the BASOs. And we're going to have a really in-depth conversation about the BASOs. So this is a statement on the behalf of myself, Robert Bob Dorsheimer, the chair, and my co-chair, Ms. Garcia. The people of Colorado, we hear you. We hear your voices emanating from each corner of the state for a behavioral health system that is responsive to our community's needs, reflects and lived experience of people of this state, and puts people first. In response to these calls, the state has created the Behavioral Health Administration with the purpose of ensuring that every Coloradan has access to whole person health. Whole person health. Let's talk about that further at some point. This purpose was convened by the community through stakeholder engagement and the BHA's values of truth, equity, collaboration, community, and evidence-based informed practices, EBTs. Generational impact to ensure that voices of people will be centered in the BHA's work. To confirm this, look no further than the Behavioral Health Administration's strategic plan. We're going to discuss the strategic plan after we have a presentation from the BASO, but I felt that this statement would help frame the BASO conversation and then help frame the strategic plan conversation. The strategic plan vision shares the story of Coloradans, the has-been, the changes the people maintain to ensure the people-first approach to behavioral health. So there's two really important things. The vision outlines key achievements, outcomes, policies the BHA will undertake in the next 3 years, with the input of community and people with lived experience. As the inaugural chair and co-chair of the Behavioral Health Administration Advisory Council, we are honored to serve your voices. We hear you, we see you. We are going to work with you to build a system where behavioral health services are accessible, meaningful, trusted. Pay equity is included in that for our workforce. Together, we will achieve the critical task of setting a new standard of comprehensive, equitable, effective behavioral health delivery in Colorado. In partnership, Robert Bob Dorsheimer, chairman, and Ms. Garcia, co-chair. Commissioner, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Dorsheimer, and I want to say good morning to the council and to the people of Colorado. This is an incredibly important conversation we're about to have about the Behavioral Health Administrative Service Organization, or BASO structure. Before I launch in, I do want to acknowledge the wildfires in Boulder, and we had 2 facilities in that region that had to evacuate, but we learned that all individuals in care are safe, as well as staff. And so we're thankful for that this morning and continue to think about the people of Boulder. I also want to acknowledge that it was one of our own BHAAC members, Jesse Pocock, who also provided response in the aftermath of the Club Q tragedy. And so as we think about both of these events in Colorado's history, we want to be thankful for the existence of this council. I'm going back to something Kelly Reedford said, that people can heal people and communities can heal communities. And so as we think about that theme today, the presentation that I am about to give for your input and discussion and advice is reflecting the voices of over 270 people of Colorado who participated in 26 stakeholder sessions across the state as we were asked to think about an appropriate structure for the new BASOs, the Behavioral Health Administrative Service Organization. As we talk today, I want to ensure that our conversation and this approach is linked to our values. So I'll take the next slide. My commitment to you is to lift up a strategy today that truly does tell the truth, that seeks an approach to thinking about the best delivery of services in an equitable way, that includes the voices of nearly 300 people across the state who participated in key informant interviews, as well as this council and the people who are listening today. This approach, we hope, will also be aligned with a collaboration and a vision for the future in 3 generations. The way this talk today is organized as part of our commissioner briefing, I'm first going to outline for you some key data principles that went into how we thought about the regions for BHAACs. And just to orient us, we called a special session in November, as you recall, to kind of have an introduction to BHAACs, what they are, how do they function. I'm going to review 1 or 2 slides just to ground us in what we talked about in November. Sarah Lucas is going to place in the chat for everyone some of our data points that we're using. So the 2020 needs assessment that was completed across the state is critical to review at this time as you follow along with this conversation. I'm then going to talk about what is care coordination. So the people of Colorado asked for the BHA to establish a care coordination infrastructure. So how do we define that? What does that mean? And how does that really appear when we think about the one-to-one interaction, the dedicated support the people of Colorado deserve in their time of need? So that vision is how we are going to move forward with the presentation today. As we seek our grounding, we seek to make a difference both at the individual level and at the systems level. At the individual level, we believe that we need a system that advocates for comprehensive, equitable, and effective care across the lifespan. We believe that we shouldn't just put dollars in just treatment supports, but it should be the full continuum of care, from prevention to recovery. We believe that the people of Colorado deserve to have clear guidance on how to access care, when, where, and how they need it. We believe that care should be trauma-informed, culturally and linguistically responsive, and might I add, resilience-focused. We also believe that care should be affordable, it should be high quality, and it should occur outside of non-criminal pathways and settings. For the people of Colorado who happen to become justice involved, we're also there for them. We're thinking about strategies for providing trauma-informed care even behind the walls. And finally, we believe that interactions with the behavioral health workforce in Colorado should not be traumatic, it should be therapeutic. So we're looking to present a strategy today that has this impact. At the systems level, I'll take the next slide. We're looking to get all of our arrows pointed in the right direction. As we look across state government, one of the key callings of the BHA is to get everyone pointing in the same direction. We are the single entity driving coordination across all state agencies when it comes to whole person health. Our vision is not just about services that we directly fund. It's about services in schools. It's about services within universal pre-K centers. I'm so excited about that. I think we can do so much as universal pre-K rolls out across the state. It's about how do we ensure parity for those who have commercial insurance? And it's certainly about how do we ensure that we don't leave people behind who may have serious mental illness, challenges with housing, and other critical issues that impact whole person health. It's our role and our calling to move us from a fragmented history into an era where we plan and strategize together across state government with the people of Colorado. We're moving into an era of streamlining provider standards and processes and rules, requirements, grievance resolution, into an era of truth-telling, transparency, and accountability. And so with that, I want to share with you a vision for how I propose we set up the BHAAC structure. I'll take the next slide. The first thing that I want to acknowledge, go ahead to the next slide, that's fine, as we think about why do we even want to do this reform in Colorado? Well, the BHA bill, which was signed into law on May 25th of this year, asked me as commissioner to establish regions across the state where we will have behavioral health administrative service organizations. In our current state, which we inherited from the Office of Behavioral Health, that office is now named the Office of Civil and Forensic Mental Health. We inherited that structure on July 1, 2022. And that structure means that currently we have 3 contracting work streams. And we reviewed this in our session in November. So there's a work stream of contracts that go directly to what we call community mental health centers. And some of you that are sitting on this council work in those centers. We also have a contracting stream through our administrative service organizations, which contract with our crisis provider network. And then we have contracts through our managed service organizations, which contract through our substance use disorder provider network. And then in turn, they have contracts with providers across the state. And so as we look to the right side of our screen, we're trying to streamline all of this into one structure where there's not a different door for substance use, a different door for mental health, different door for community mental health, but there's one door, the Behavioral Health Administrative Service Organization, that now has access to an expanded network of providers. And I do want to define the word safety net here. When we say safety net, we're generally talking about services that are publicly funded and that are supporting people who live up to 300% of the federal poverty level. This includes our comprehensive and our essential safety net providers. And in our future, it will also include primary care providers who would like to provide what we call integrated care. Next slide. And so with that, I want to acknowledge our prior conversation that the role of the BHAACs, and I hope you'll allow me to use that shortened phrase for the rest of this talk, they really do 4 things. They're responsible for helping individuals and families access care in a timely manner. They're responsible for streamlining the existing structure of MSOs and ASOs, where there's now separate doors for substance use and mental health needs. Now there's just one door. They're responsible for providing a continuum, and that's so key. In our strategic plan that we're going to be releasing in January 31 of next year, we're going to be defining what is the BHA whole person care continuum. And then we're going to be working with other state agencies, including healthcare policy and finance, to ensure that that continuum is properly resourced and funded. And finally, the BHAACs are responsible for interfacing and aligning with the regional accountable entities that many of our council members have referenced today. I will refer to them as RAIs for the remainder of this talk. And obviously those RAIs are intricately involved with the lives of Medicaid members. Next slide. So I want to propose to you on the next slide that we consider an approach in Colorado of having 2 regional BHAACs. And I want to suggest to you why that is the best approach. We're going to show in the next slide, you can stay here for now, but in upcoming slides, we're going to show an approach to how we can model 2 regional BHAACs to create similarities in the number of counties covered, in the demographics and needs within those regions, in Medicaid utilization, and in healthcare needs in general within that 2 BHAAC structure. We know that currently the RAI structure has 7 regions, and we were deeply concerned about simply creating 7 additional BHAACs, creating additional confusion for the people of Colorado and additional confusion for those in need. The second reason that we want to have 2 regional BHAACs is it minimizes the administrative burden. Obviously, we know that our workforce needs to be able to see individuals in need. And when you have 7 RAIs and possibly 7 or more BHAACs, now you have additional confusion in the system with our workforce. We also wanted to pay attention to what we learned in our stakeholder sessions, which is that the more regions that we have in terms of BHAACs, the more dollars are spent on administration and not direct care to the people of Colorado. So in this structure, I'm proposing that less state dollars be spent on administrative costs, and let's put more dollars into the services that are needed for those who actually are in crisis and those who need a people-first system right now. I also think that there is incredible opportunity if we go with this 2 BHAAC structure to actually provide integration with the RAIs. rather than having more fragmentation. So if we just stacked 7 BASOs on top of 7 RAYs, I worry that as commissioner, I will not be able to have an integrated behavioral health system across the state. Instead, we'll just have more confusion and red tape. And finally, I want to emphasize that although I'm proposing 2 BASOs today, that the regional committees that inform how those BASOs operate with county commissioners and so forth, that those regional committees will still be more than 2, and those regional committees will still be active at local levels. So certainly I'm not diminishing only having 2 regional subcommittees through this approach. So let's take a look at what this looks like on the next slide. As we looked at the data, and I believe our executive assistant, Sarah Lucas, has placed in the chat for everyone. If you look at table 7 in the 2020 needs assessment, this is foundational to how we determine the regions. On the left-hand column, you'll see the region number by Ray. So this is Ray region 1 through 7. Thank you. Yep, we can stay on this slide. This is region 1 through 7 on the left. And then you see 5 key factors. Poor mental health days among adults. What is the safety net score in that region? And what that means is they looked at the number of neighborhoods that have a population up to 300% of the federal poverty level or are uninsured. And so the higher the safety net score, that means the more people that are likely to live below 300% of the federal poverty level or be uninsured. So as you see the colors going from light to dark, the darker colors means there's greater need in that Ray region. We also looked at rate of behavioral health emergency room visits, so for mental health or substance use crisis. We also looked at the number of suicide deaths within a region. We also looked at the number of drug overdose deaths within a region, the rate of those deaths by population. What you see in parentheses are the number of counties that are impacted within that region with higher levels of need. Okay, so let's step back for a moment. What am I saying here? The darker colors mean a higher level of need. So the take home from this slide is that region 4, Ray region 4, is a very high level of need in our state, along with regions 1 and 7. We should also conclude that regions 2, 5, and 6 are moderate, and region 3 is the lowest acuity region. So when we designed a 2 BASO structure, we wanted to ensure that there was balance in terms of each of these factors and ensuring that if one BASO had the highest acuity region, that there was balance in the other regions that BASO may be responsible for covering. I also want to emphasize that unlike the Ray structure, the Behavioral Health Administration BASOs will not be limited to contracting only within a geographic area. Instead, they will be focused on covering the people who live in those counties. So that's a really important distinction. So even if a person lives in BASO 1, we can still contract for telehealth and other supports, recovery supports that may cross over into another BASO. All right, so that is unique to the structure that we're proposing. Let's take a look at the next slide. This is what the proposed scenario 1 may look like. And for those of you who are used to thinking about rays, basically if you look at the blue or the aqua color at the top, that is equivalent to Ray 1, 2, 5, and 6. If you look at the green counties, that's equivalent to Rays 3, 4, and 7. That's one scenario that we analyzed in our approach, right? So I'll let that sit there for just a moment. This is scenario 1. Let's look at scenario 2. In scenario 2, we attempted to look more closely at population. And so we said, okay, what if we created one BASO that focused on the Denver metro area and another BASO that focused on the rest of the state? And so this is scenario 2. I'll let that sit for just one moment. Scenario 3. In scenario 3, we said, okay, what if we expand the approach to the Denver Metro? We add in Park and El Paso counties, which are very large counties. We include that in BASO 1, and then the rest of the state is BASO 2. All right, so Sarah, let's show the people one more time scenario 1, scenario 2, and scenario 3. Thank you. Next slide. On this slide, we're showing a comparison of all of the safety net factors from the 2020 needs assessment and how each scenario performs in that assessment. This can look a little confusing, but the reason that you see mostly blue on this slide means that scenario 1, which we're colored in blue, scenario 2 is orange, scenario 3 is gray, right? So scenario 1, which is blue, is basically showing that it has the most equality and similarities in all of the characteristics below. Let me walk you through this. So if you look at the top column, the top row, excuse me, we looked at 32 factors, including demographics, healthcare utilization, Medicaid members, suicide overdose deaths, network capacity, all of these issues, right? If we look at all of those 32 factors, 72% of those factors are equal if we go with scenario 1. Now, why do we even care about equality? Well, if we just went by population and said that, okay, we're going to send dollars to the Denver Metro at this proportion because they have the most people, right? We didn't feel, and the people of Colorado didn't feel that that would be equitable, because just sending more dollars to the greatest population does not acknowledge and honor the fact that although rural Colorado has less people, there's actually greater need in rural Colorado. And so that's why we backed off from that approach. And we said, no, we can't just send dollars to where the most people are, because we're going to end up with the same justice that we have right now, that there's fewer people in rural Colorado, but they have the highest level of need. So that's what you're seeing on this chart. Now, if we go down to the second row, healthcare utilization. Okay, scenario 1 and 2 were about equal. All right, so that's what you're seeing on row 2. If you go down to behavioral health need, we looked at 8 factors, and we found that for 75% of those factors, scenario 1 was the best strategy to have equality between the regions. Now, this is interesting. So if we look at continuum of services, there was only one factor there that we could analyze. So currently, Colorado's continuum is split, and that's what that row is showing you, that if you went with a model, which is scenario 3, where you just had an urban BASO and a rural BASO, where you just split the dollars based on people, then you would have roughly equal continuum access. In other words, there's just as many services in the Denver Metro as there are in the rest of the state. But that does not solve the problem, because you have much more land to cover in the rest of the state. So that is what that fourth graphic is showing you. Our job as the BHA is to ensure that there is a robust continuum in rural Colorado, and no matter where a person lives, as I stated in our opening values. If we look at provider network factors, you can see that scenario 1 wins out big time. No other scenario compared to that. If you look at Medicaid utilization, you can see that 60% of those factors align with scenario 1. If you look at demographic factors, you see that 80% of those factors align with choosing scenario 1 if you want an equal approach to delivering services. And then finally, the final row here, number of counties, the 2 BASOs have equality in terms of number of counties covered. Next slide. This is other data that the Behavioral Health Administration has considered as we present this proposal today. We've looked at HCPF data. We've looked at the American Community Survey data. We've looked at the Department of Public Health data, SAMHSA locator, treatment locator, and provider data. The Colorado Health Institute has helped us with this analysis. Colorado Health Association, and on, and especially the 2020 Behavioral Health Needs Assessment. All right, I see a comment to go back to the map. Let's go back to scenario 1. Here it is. Scenario 2. And scenario 3. Okay, let's advance, and I will continue to pay attention to the chat. Let's advance. We can go beyond this slide as well. What's so important for us today, council members, is not just to think about regions, but to also think about what is the difference that the BHAAC will make for the person in Colorado who needs help right now. And so with that, I want to shift to part 2 of our presentation today, which is care coordination. What is our vision for that? And what does that look like? Next slide. As I present these definitions to you today, the process, again, has been done with integrity. As we think about the work of the Behavioral Health Task Force, they had a work group called the Care Coordination Work Group. We have reviewed the work of that work group in proposing these definitions to you today. We have also met with our Medicaid agency and other cabinet members who are my colleagues to align these definitions. Next slide. The specific standards of care that will support these definitions will be promulgated by the BHA in our rules and standards process. But today I want to get your feedback on, at a high level, what is care coordination? How should it be defined from low to high intensity? And how do we move forward? Often when we talk about care coordination, we talk about low intensity care coordination as being care navigation. We often talk about higher intensity services being care management or case management in some cases. The BHA is proposing today that we limit the confusion around navigation, care management, case management. And today we're going to propose a vision of 3 levels of care coordination that are defined based on an individual's need. The first thing that we want to propose is an overall approach to care coordination. And then I'm going to suggest 3 levels of care coordination as defined by the BHA. First of all, we believe that care coordination should be defined as person-centered, trauma-informed, and culturally responsive activities that support individuals and families in accessing and engaging in physical health, behavioral health, and social services needed to achieve whole person health. Care coordination activities also include deliberately organizing individual care activities and the timely sharing of information among all of the participants concerned with an individual's care. That's an overall vision for what care coordination is. Now let's take a look at the 3 levels. When we talk about level 1 care coordination, I'm proposing that we define it as addressing straightforward needs by providing an individual with information and occasional assistance to help them navigate the complexities of their physical or behavioral health or social service needs. Level 1 services must be provided in accordance with BHA standards of care. Let's look at the specific duties of a level 1 care coordinator. A level 1 care coordinator should provide triage for an individual. So what does an individual need at the front door? Advocating for the person within the healthcare system. Conducting screenings to identify the person's priorities, goals, and the barriers that they face. Creating and supporting an immediate plan of action for whole person health promotion and well-being. Providing accessible and culturally meaningful resources and information, including resource directories. Conducting application assistance and warm handoffs to access appropriate resources and care. And this next line is so critical. Care coordination must be ethical, it must be trustworthy, it must be empathic and caring, in every interaction with the person and family. And a level 1 care coordinator must facilitate transitions to other levels of care coordination as needed. So let's look at those other levels. Care coordination level 2. So now we are thinking more in the moderate to high intensity range of need. So this now addresses complex needs requiring multiple partners across sectors. So thinking about housing, employment, thinking about how do we coordinate with our partners in the justice system to work together as a team with the individual and family. This care coordination team provides dedicated support through trusted relationships. Level 2 services must include everything that I just said in level 2 and level 1, and this additional support in level 2, all in accordance with BHA standards of care. Let's look at the specific activities on the next slide. It now involves conducting comprehensive assessments to develop and support long-term care plans across sectors to address each person's and family's priorities, goals, and barriers they face, providing outreach, planning, problem-solving, advocacy, education, and self-management support, coordinating with partners that are trained to provide specialized services, including assessing risk, discharge planning, transition planning, prior authorizations needed, insurance appeals, medication and treatment reconciliation, convening across peer support professional networks, and physical health, behavioral health, social service, and community-based providers, and facilitating transitions to other levels of care. Care coordination level 2 aligns with care coordination as required of a comprehensive behavioral health provider. Let's take a look at level 3. This is now the highest intensity care coordination, and I'm proposing today that we define this as, in addition to performing all of the services in level 1 and level 2, level 3 care coordination means addressing complex needs requiring multiple partners across sectors to work together as a team with the individual and family. And the key word here is this is done with intensive support, high touch support through trusted relationships and in accordance with our standards of care. Let's look at the specific activities on the next slide. All level 3 care coordination agencies, facilities, must provide level 1 and level 2 services at a higher frequency or length of time, must serve as a convener on behalf of people with complex care needs and multiple providers, bringing healthcare and community-based service providers together for the purpose of care planning and coordination, outreaching and engaging intentionally with the person. Isn't that so critical? I can't tell you how many times I waited in my office as a psychiatrist, only to realize that the people that I needed to be reaching were out in our neighborhoods and communities. This outreach is so important. Not every person is going to walk into an office. There's lives being lost because we don't yet have a model where we focus on the outreach rather than the inreach. This model is supporting that approach. Outreach, engagement, meeting people where they are, and engaging intentionally with the person and their healthcare partners, and there that word again, to build trust. Because ultimately, we want to have a system that's accessible, meaningful, and trusted. Care coordination level 3 aligns with care management as required of a comprehensive community behavioral health provider in law. Next slide. So how does all of this come together? Let me summarize this for us. 1, 2, and 3 here indicates the levels of care coordination. So the yellow number 1 indicates that care coordination level 1 is going to be part of that base license for a behavioral health entity. It is provided by essential safety net providers, comprehensive providers, even primary care providers as part of our new system. Level 2 must be provided by comprehensive community behavioral health providers. It may be provided by essential providers, primary care providers with BHA approval. Level 3 is another service that must be provided by comprehensive community behavioral health providers, and it may be provided by primary care providers, essential safety net providers, and other individual providers with BHA approval. So then what is the BASO doing? So we have all these providers that we want doing care coordination. So now the BASO's role is to establish a network within a region and within a community where providers are working together to ensure that all three levels are available to the people of Colorado. Next slide. This slide shows us how this all comes together. Hopefully you've heard by now of the new care directory that has been created by the BHA called OwnPath, how every Coloradan can experience and access behavioral health care that is meaningful. OwnPath is now the new front door to our system. Now, as we build up OwnPath, there's eventually going to be an approach where a person can have a guided experience. That guided experience will take them into a triage process to where they will be assisted with getting connected to the right care coordinator. If they're in level 1 care coordination, that's going to be possibly their primary care doctor or their essential safety net provider. If they happen to be stuck in an emergency room, that's going to be the BHA directly. The BHA is also determining other priority populations that it wants to get directly involved with, and we're discussing who those populations should be at this very moment. If we determine from the triage process that a person actually needs level 2 supports, okay, that will then be provided by the comprehensive behavioral health provider or any approved essential safety net provider or primary care provider. And then if we determine that there is a need for care coordination level 3, we see here that comprehensive community behavioral health providers, as well as approved primary care providers and essential providers can all provide that service. Now, what we're also showing here is that the goal is to get to recovery. And so as we think about how the people of Colorado move between Colorado Crisis Services, OwnPath, care coordination, level 1, 2, 3, outpatient services, high intensity outpatient services, that ultimately we want to see a step down and transition approach that helps every person achieve their version of recovery. And so that's why you see the emphasis on recovery at the bottom square there. Next slide. I've reached the end of what I wanted to share with you today, and now we need to dialogue about this because this is a critical decision for the people of Colorado. And so with this council and with the people of Colorado, I hope we can continue to talk about how these definitions are sitting with you. Can you imagine this being helpful to you or your loved ones? We need to now make sure that we are directly aligned with our Medicaid agency, and we're working hard to finalize that approach, ensuring that the RAY approach to care coordination, that BASO approach to care coordination is integrated, ensuring that we can maximize federal dollars coming into the states to support care coordination, and ensuring that we're clarifying expectations between the BHA and healthcare policy and finance. On my final slide today, I want to bring us back to what the calling of the BHA is. And I hope today that you can see that this proposal is moving us, I believe, into the right part of this graph, where we finally have a system that's coordinated with a unified vision and strategy so that we truly have co-created a people-first behavioral health system. That's my commissioner's briefing for today. And with that, I will turn it back over to Chairman Dorsheimer. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm opening it up now for conversation from advisory members. Questions, advisory members, of Dr. Medlock's presentation.
Bob, you've got 2 hands up. Tina Rowe, I believe, was first, and then Jamie Ulrich.
Tina?
So what's coming to mind for me is I was a wraparound family support partner for High Fidelity Wraparound when I first started. And one of the things that this is kind of reminding me of is the first steps of getting buy-in and trying to get the family's plan. And I'm not seeing an opt-out option in any of this, and trying to get the family's goal as far as where they want to direct it. So I see a lot of, these are the things that we're going to do, but I think that really seeing what steps the family wants to get to would be really helpful, and having that real person first language of what are the goals that the family wants to reach, and identifying those pieces so that we can feel like as individuals having somebody step in at a time where we're struggling, that it's us kind of directing things a little bit so that it doesn't feel like everybody's trying to steer our boat. Does that make sense? So that we can feel empowered instead of everybody else trying to make the plans for us. Because when we have multiple entities involved in our world, everybody's trying to tell you what you have to do and what you have to follow. And it gets very overwhelming. And this is a huge opportunity to have somebody come in and say, how can we help you come up with a plan that's going to bring all these things together so that it's a plan that you can follow, and to really be empowering for the families. That's just what I'm seeing here.
Thank you for that comment. That is noted.
Next comment, state your name and question.
Good morning. I'm Jamie Ulrich. I'm the director for the Weld County Department of Human Services. And I think that, hello, everybody. I really appreciate the direction in which this is all moving. I think it's an amazing step forward in clarifying some of these definitions and roles and responsibilities for care coordination. I think that for me, I do wonder about as acuity levels may rise within a particular individual, how that transition to different levels of care coordination would take place, if at all. So maybe starting at a level 1, and then as acuity kind of rises, maybe they now need a level 2 or a level 3, and how that transition is going to look, if at all. Because I do think that stability is really important for folks in the behavioral health system, and kind of having different people engaging with them as they move along the continuum might be a little frustrating and challenging. And then my other comment is that I really think we have an opportunity with care coordination to talk about prevention and how to really kind of work with individuals really early on, so that they don't continue to have higher needs later. So as we're looking at a level 1, how can they have a really big prevention focus so that they don't move to level 2? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. And Sarah, let's go back to the slide. Someone is asking for us to go back to the overview slide where we have the arrows pointing in different directions. Yes, they want us to hold on this tab. Thank you, Commissioner. Can you repeat the recommendation regarding rural Coloradans? Can you repeat that recommendation? I was trying to write, but I couldn't keep up.
Sorry, Dr. Medlock, are you referring to my comments? Okay, I don't believe I spoke about the rural aspects of it.
Okay.
But I was,
that should have been Tina.
Got it. Okay, yes. I think I'm with us then. Thank you.
Thanks.
Tina, did you have recommendations that you wanted to follow up with Dr. Medlock?
It was just the making sure that we don't have to change staff. Like you get a working relationship with somebody, and as you're changing care levels, not having to change the person that you're working with would be really important, because you build that relationship and that trust. And if you're having to shift to somebody different, that could be really disruptive, especially to somebody with mental health challenges. I know during my rough spots, that was something that was not helpful.
Thank you for that. We agree with that approach, and it is one reason why if there is a comprehensive provider in a community, all 3 levels of care coordination have to be provided by that one entity as an option, so that the individual in care does not have to navigate going to a different place for the 3 levels.
I'm going to go to Seth, then Ronnie, and then Council Member Polak. Seth?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the chart, and I support like the Region 1 BASO like diagram. I think that's very appropriate based on the data. Part of my questions is kind of like, you know, with the diagram is like, I feel like some people like can go from triage to recovery very quickly, simply like with, you know, substance use and abuse. Like they might join a 12-step fellowship or something, and you know that's all they need, and they might or might not need mental health care, or they might or might not need physical health care. And so that's where I kind of come up with that question. And then also I look at the 3 levels of care coordination, and you know, looking at how high the levels are. As a peer specialist, I would want to kind of see where my role as a peer specialist would fall within the care coordination of these 3 levels. Like, would I be able to provide care at the 3 level or the 2 level based on like my role as a peer specialist? And then also there is a like Colorado Health Network, which is an HIV clinic organization, already has a care coordination going on in the state of Colorado for HIV services, where they provide all these intensive wraparound services for people, and they have regional offices for people, and they do a great job of like coordinating care and getting everybody, whether it be rental assistance or healthcare or therapy or whatever. They do everything right there in their central office or in their like satellite offices. And so I think that's important to like take a look at. And then I think if people want to know more about, you know, the future of the ACC phase 3 stuff that's going on, when there's going to be a public comment on January 10th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. That might show people a little bit more about where this care coordination idea comes from HICPUF and also the BHA, as they kind of integrate services and plans. So that's just what I kind of see at this diagram.
Thank you for that, Seth. That's an outstanding comment. And I think that the question in there was the role of peers, peer support specialist. And the answer there is that the BHA as a whole embraces trauma-informed systems. And as part of that embrace, we believe that it must include individuals with expertise and peer support specialists throughout the continuum. I will take a look at the recommended structure in terms of how HIV care is coordinated. Thanks for that recommendation.
The HIV care in Colorado is also an ASO. They're called AIDS Service Organizations. Next up is Ronnie.
Hey, thanks so much. Appreciate the thoughtfulness of the BASO regions and the data that went into drawing up the different proposals, as well as the levels of care coordination. Just had a question around specifically youth mental health provider adequacy given workforce shortages across the state. I think the concern would be there's specialized skill sets and resources for kids and families across systems that will be needed sort of in the design of the different levels of care coordination, but there's really not adequate provider network for youth supports and family supports. And we worry that, especially for rural populations, we don't want to really over-rely on telehealth services to higher resourced areas, having built, sort of thinking about building sort of local capacity and workforce in different ways. I wonder if the BHA has thought about some ideas for children and families.
Thank you so much, Dr. Liao, for that question. I actually was working on a press release this morning for a new approach to in-home crisis resolution supports that the BHA is piloting for children, youth, and their families. And I want to have our Senior Advisor for Children give us an update on that approach, which I think is very much warranted at this time.
Thank you. Councilwoman Polak.
Sorry, sorry. I was going to give Chris Meyer, if you could give the people of Colorado an update to Dr. Ronley Liao's question.
Yeah, so focusing on making sure that we have services and supports to be able to keep families within their community and home, and really being able to support as Councilmember Ronley is a part of Children's Hospital, and being able to work collaboratively together to make sure that we have our children and youth, and as well as the support for families regarding caregiver interventions, which are so critical to be able to have families feel safe and that they have the skills to be able to support the recovery of their child or youth from that behavioral health crisis. Also, we're going to be focusing on the continuous promotion as an access point for iMatter, and really being able to connect children, youth, and families to those critical access points in prevention of a behavioral health crisis. Was there anything I missed, Ronley?
No, just looking forward to learning more once those announcements come out.
Thank you, Commissioner. This is really impressive. I just had a few comments and questions, and the questions don't have to be answered today if there's not time, but certainly would love to have follow-up around some of the things. One is under recovery support. I'm just so pleased to see that. But what does that look like in terms of coordination and care? I'd be really curious to just see some elaboration similar to the other boxes, because I also think that can tie with prevention of future significant needs. The other, just a comment on data transparency, so glad to see that because I think it informs choices. So when if there's transparency in data, I would imagine individuals can look up care providers, see some of their outcomes, and determine whether or not they're right for the level of care and services that they're needing. Then the other thought or question that I had was related to just sort of equity and access. And I know that's just so core to everything that you're doing and that this administration is focusing on. But it would be really nice. I was thinking of, young people or LGBTQ people or people of color accessing services and providers who are culturally informed, because again, if folks are going and seeking services from providers who are not inclusive, that would be an issue. And so would love to just see matrix similarly, and maybe it's already in there, in your data section, so that folks are having to report out outcomes based on protected class or something of that nature that could help determine their ability to correctly serve.
Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate your comments. I want to highlight a couple things. When we think about recovery and what that continuum looks like, we are talking about how a person is able to just navigate the world in terms of having supported housing, supported employment. Colorado participates in a program called IPS, along with our partners at the Department of Labor and Environment. So we're talking about recovery residences as well. And we're also looking at an approach to respite services in addition as part of that continuum. But that is what we're talking about. Whole person health to us also means housing, education, and other critical social drivers of health. In regard to your approach around inclusivity and cultural responsiveness of our workforce, we are intending to have data dashboards that are open to the public by region to show how are we doing in terms of delivering safe care across Colorado. So that is absolutely part of our future. And we are going to be onboarding a chief data officer to help us with that approach in the new year. Thank you for those comments.
Next up, I have Tasha.
Tasha Conker here, pronouns they, them. I just wanted to make a statement because being as a person with lived experience throughout all of this, I like how this is set up in the beginnings of the stages, like the triage for care coordination level 1. It definitely needs to be very informed instead of just, from what I experienced, handing a piece of paper saying you're just depressed, you need to get counseling. With that happening, I am now in the lack of care. I'm at a care coordination level 3 throughout my life, and that could have been prevented if we had this set up. And I love how it's set up because it is person-centered whole health care and bringing more people together with the connections so they don't fall between the cracks, because the case managers and the professionals, that's where there's a disconnect. There's not enough to serve the populations. And especially with our community mental health centers, we need to get more providers into that network so we can provide more services and better services and quality of services to every Coloradoan that needs these services. Thank you.
Thank you, Tasha.
Carolyn?
Yes, I'm just curious about some things. I really like the proposed care coordination overviews. I think it's a very beautiful model of making sure that people are getting the extensive care that they need. And what I have to say in this is I'm curious as to, like, usually peers who are utilizing the services should have options as to what they feel is going to be best for them, because I feel like people are usually their own experts. And I have heard people say, you know, that they have asked for a service and they were told they weren't sick enough to get that service. So I'm wondering, I mean, I see people as knowing what they need because maybe they've used something before that wasn't helpful. And then that's just something I just want to make sure that there's communication and it is person-centered. And then also with triage, I'm curious as to, I would like to learn the methods of what is used to figuring out who receives what coordination of level of care, because I think sometimes things are not triaged always in the way that they should be, or, you know, again, people are told, well, you're not sick enough, or, you know, and so I'm just curious about the triage. Thank you for letting me share this.
Thank you, Carolyn. And the triage portion is one that we are admittedly struggling with because we want it to be person-centered And we also want it to be data informed. And so our team has looked at, for children, looking at the CANS assessment, although we are concerned about the length of that assessment. For adults, we've been looking at the adults' needs and strengths assessment. But again, we are trying to balance the length of these assessments with actually getting the people of Colorado what they need at the right time and how they need it. So I will certainly welcome dialogue. Email me, let's talk about how do we do the triage piece. And you're uniquely able to do that because you support our crisis line. So I would love to hear from you how we should do that in a timely way, an efficient way.
Thank you.
As advisory councils, I'm going to ask you to hold now your questions. In the interest of time, I do need to move to allowing our public comment to have access to this presentation. So,
Bob, excuse me, this is Renee. I have one quick question that is very important. And I've had my hand up for a long time. Can I please ask this? So in discussing the scenarios, scenario 1, 2, and 3, 1 and 3 was very well described. Being blind, number 2, I could not understand how it looks. Can you explain that to me so I can understand scenario 2?
Thank you, Catherine.
Absolutely, and my apologies for being unclear. I also have some construction going on here in my neighborhood today, so I apologize for the audio issues. Level 2 care coordination is a moderate level of support that includes person-centered advocacy, screening, health education, everything that I described in level 1. In addition, it includes a more comprehensive assessment of the person's entire range of need, whether that be for physical health, behavioral health, or social service needs. One of the things that our internal staff pointed out is not every person has 10 issues or needs. There may just be one big problem, which may be housing. There may just be 2 big problems, you know? And so in level 2, we're trying to ensure that those more massive social needs, which have such a critical impact on someone's health, are addressed. Does that help?
Well, I was asking about the regional scenario number 2.
Ah, what does that look like? My apologies.
Sorry.
The regional scenario number 2 was essentially taking a very small area of the center of the state, which is essentially Denver Metro, and subtracting Park and El Paso County. Scenario 3 essentially takes Denver Metro and adds on Park and El Paso County, which are obviously very large counties.
Karen, was there anything else?
No, that was just wanting my understanding, just seeing if it was metrocentric or how that played out. That was all. Thank you.
You're welcome. Everyone else, please hang in there with me. I'd like to get the public comment in the interest of time. Sarah, Yumiko, do we have public comment waiting in our waiting room with?
For those who are attending from the public, I know there were a few questions put into the Q&A chat. If you'd like to raise your hand and address Commissioner Medlock and the panel directly, please do so. Otherwise, we can read out the questions as well that were posted. I'm not seeing any hands. Oh, no, we do have one from Robert Bremer.
Dr. Bremer, Dr. Rob, how are you?
Oh, hey, Bob. I sorry, got myself off mute. I just appreciate so much the work of the council and what is going on here to do all this. Just a huge lift. So thank you. The question I had about the triage piece, and Dr. Medlock, I was appreciative that you recognized the resource constraint there and doing triages and the lift that would be required to do that. One comment I would make on that is in terms of maybe there's a pre-triage, so to speak, where, access to level 1 care coordination where there's not as intensive of an assessment and a triage that's necessary, some way to sort of stage or stepwise the triages that need to happen. Because that was when I saw that was an initial concern of mine, is that could be a potential bottleneck if everyone has to go through that same funnel. That could get clogged up and be a barrier to access.
Well said, Dr. Brimmer. Thank you for that. We will look at that. We'll take another look at that. That's a very good comment.
Thank you, Dr. Robb. Are there any other public comments, Yumiko?
Yeah. Yes, so we have a few written comments that have come through, or questions. If we can't get through all of these, we will find another way to provide responses in writing. So I'll go ahead and read the first question here, which was put forth by an anonymous attendee. It's asking, will comprehensive providers be doing level 3 care coordination for people who do not receive services from them? How do we ensure people are given choice in who they receive services from when a provider is care coordinating their care?
Thank you for that question. The answer to the first, in terms of for individuals who may not be part of their direct service team, that is undecided and would be negotiated through the contracting process that the BHAAC undertakes. If there's a specific recommendation on that, feel free to also put that in written comment. So that's yet undecided. In the term of the second part of the question, how do we ensure people are given choice? Well, we give them choice. So I support that as a model. I do think that we need our comprehensive providers to provide all 3 levels of care coordination under the same roof. But I think that for the individual, they can choose how to access that care coordination approach. Okay, Yumiko, let's look at the next question.
Okay, the next question. With the previous rollout of the Colorado Crisis Services, the intention and purpose was to have a no wrong door approach, and any individual presenting with any behavioral health condition, mental health, substance use, trauma, or all 3 would be served. That did not happen. It sounds like that is the intention and purpose of this new BHAAC system. How will this no wrong door intention and approach be honored, respected, and not fall through the cracks like it previously did with the Colorado Crisis Services rollout?
Thank you for that question. The crisis continuum has some issues that we have identified as the Behavioral Health Administration. When I onboarded in January, we immediately began holding crisis convenings with all of our crisis partners across the state, recognizing that no wrong door approach had indeed broken down. We're in the process of ensuring that our staffing models across the continuum, which includes the hotline, walk-in centers, crisis stabilization centers, and crisis respite, are all thinking about this no wrong door philosophy in a unique way. We also know that House Bill 1214 establishes that all persons must be served within the crisis system, including those with disabilities and including those with substance use disorders, as well as children and youth. So we are trying to move into the future where we can keep our promises to the people of Colorado within the crisis system. The BHA has also released $130 million in grant funding on December 8th to support crisis continuum development, including capital developments to the physical structures that may need to be updated to truly support a people first behavioral health system.
Great. And if we have time to get this last substantive question, and I think that would be great. Last question, is there a different advisory council for the BHA that includes CMHC and IPN behavioral health providers? It seems this advisory council only includes advocates and the 2 large hospitals, Children's and University. Since CMHCs have been blamed for so much over the past year, is there a reason they were excluded from this advisory council?
Thank you for that question. The BHA's value is inclusion, not exclusion. And so we sought to first be in accordance with the law when it comes to how these positions are defined. And that can be found in House Bill 22-1278 in terms of the statutory requirements under Chapter 50 of that bill that are required to sit on this council. So our value is community informed practice which means we believe in inclusion, not exclusion. And so no one was intentionally excluded from participating in community-informed practice.
And it's an open dialogue as we are having right now. So everybody is welcome. At that point, with respect, Commissioner, I've reached the end of the time with my agenda. So advisory council members and Yumiko, I am going to have to move. And I do believe we would like to have the commissioner back for more dialogue, because there's still a lot of hands up and I'm getting a lot of text messages. So I will work to make sure that our commissioner and we can still continue to have the BHAAC conversation, because there are more questions that people have and would like that attention. So that being said, respectfully, I do need to move the BHA's draft of the strategic plan to the next agenda. At our next meeting, our goals are to start and stop on time and respect everybody's time. And at this point, I do want to say to everybody that I want you to have a safe and happy holidays to all of our Coloradans and task force members. Be safe. Remember the crisis line we talked about. Remember we're in a cold weather alert type system. Bring in the animals, help the homeless. You got 48 hours. Colorado Crisis Services is available. I appreciate everybody's deep thought today. We've made a lot of progress today. So thank you, community. And for all advisory members, please remain on. We're going into executive session for 3 to 5 minutes for a training session with me. And I bid community farewell and happy New Year. See you in 2023.
Happy holidays, everyone. And Chairman Bob has a new hat on. Take care, everybody.
All right, recording can stop, and let me know when I can go into executive session.